Hello everyone, welcome back to Jamie. This is Grace. Today we're going to talk about flat renting in Singapore. Now, I have lived in Singapore for the past 7 years and I've moved several times during that period of time. So in this video, I'll be sharing some of the lessons that I've learned through my renting experiences in Singapore. Before you go on a search, answer these few questions. The first thing is, where do you want your flat to be located at? Really, you want it to be somewhere near your workplace or your school because you won't want to be traveling from one end to the other end of the country. Yes, Singapore is not a huge country, but still, it's very draining, trust me. So what you can do is Google the MRT map of Singapore and then mark the place that is nearest to your workplace. Then you can just make a range around from that place. So for example, if I work in one of the this particular MRT station, I allow myself to stay, say, maybe 5 stations away. Yeah, so this will be the range that I want for my flat. So it will be a lot easier for you to find in the search engine. The next question you need to ask is that do you need a room rental or do you want to rent an entire flat? Now, commonly in Singapore, people who rent the entire flat are people who have families or people who have like a set of housemates that they are already familiar with. If you're none of those people, you can opt for room rental. But that will also means you will either have to stay with landlords or other tenants. Either way, unless you're loaded with a lot of money, it's very likely that you won't be able to have like the whole flat to yourself. So lesson number 1 of staying away from home is co-living etiquette. The third question is the most important question. What is your budget? Because it literally ties to everything else. Speaking from experience, I would say one would probably need about 600 to 700 bucks per month for rent. If you can actually make that number lower, please leave in a comment and tell me how you do it because it's something that I can't do. So yeah, let me know how you do it. Anyway, there's something else that is helpful for you to determine what's the market price. So this is the website that HDB has, and this website will give you like an estimated price range for the different type of HDB flats in different areas of Singapore. I have to say it might not be so accurate because location and the type of the house is not the only factor that determine the price of the flat. So there are a lot more other factors, things like whether or not the place is renovated, the age of the building, whether or not the place is furnished, etc. etc. Now, you have heard me mentioning HDB, and that stands for Housing and Development Board. This is a government institution in Singapore that is in charge of public housing. So in short, we call these public houses HDB flats. HDB flats are also the most common type of residence in Singapore, and depending on the areas and also what type of HDB flats it is, the price range will differ, and you can just go into the website and see what they have. Now, aside from public houses, there are also private developers condominiums that you can rent from, and these condominiums are usually a lot more expensive than HDB flats. Reason being, they provide a lot of private facilities like swimming pools, barbecue pits, a gym, and sometimes even a conference hall. Naturally, the better the facilities, the more expensive the place would be. Now that I've answered all the questions, it's time for you to go on house hunting. So there are a lot of search engines in the market that you can go into to look for a flat. The most common one that we use are this thing called Property Guru. Property Guru is actually a platform whereby housing agents or property agents will go up there and list out the houses they have on their hands for rent or for sale. Now, since we're talking about rent, you can just ignore about the sale part. So in Property Guru, there's also the search box also has this function whereby you can just click everything that you want. So the answers that you've answered before, you can just fill in according to your own preference, and then it will just automatically filter everything that you don't want out. I find it very useful. If you don't like Property Guru, there are also other websites that have similar functions, things like Nestia and 99.co. I will list all those links in my description box. You can just go down there and click on it if you want to use it. If you're still not satisfied with all these websites, you can still go into social media platforms. Yes, you hear me right. Platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and Carousel. Go into this platform and go into the search box and type in things like Singapore room rental, Singapore house rental, or any keyword along that line. You probably can find a social group on Facebook or some rental company in Instagram, and just literally anyone that lists out their place for rent on Carousel. If you find everything that I said just now a hassle, there's something that you can do is just to hire a property agent. Now this property agent will be looking for a flat for you according to your requirement and also deal with all the documents afterwards. So you don't have to do anything at all, but pay money. So since you click into this video, I would assume that you won't want to pay extra money for an agent. That's why you should beware of dodgy agents out there. There are some people out there that even though you're not the one that hires them for work, they will ask for agent fee from you. So rule of thumb is that if you did not hire this person to work for you, you don't have to pay them. If the landlord is the one who hires them and asks them to promote the place for rent on any of these platforms that you've found, they, which is the landlord, are the one that are supposed to pay their commission fee, not you. So just have to remember that. Well, to be honest, people out there aren't that bad, but no harm to know your rights. Now that you have found a listing that you really like, and then the next thing you do is really just to contact the person in charge, whether or not it's the agent or it's the landlord directly. So usually the listings, they will have their contact numbers there. What you have to do is just to text them and say, hey, I'm interested, or something like this. Now, this is the time you will receive a reply, probably something on the sound like, hey, what's your profile? So what does this profile mean? Now, profile essentially means some of the basic information they need to judge whether or not you are a good tenant. You probably have to tell them your occupation, also your nationality, and what kind of pass you're holding in Singapore. They will also be interested to know how long do you intend to rent the place for. Now here is also where you can try to negotiate the price if it's listed as negotiable. So it's flat viewing day. Now I have to stress this. Go and view the flat in person. If you can't do it yourself, send someone that you trust to do it for you. I mean, have you seen burger in ads and in real life? Here are some of the things that you need to pay attention to when you are viewing the flat. Now the first thing is go and assess the electrical system of the house. So the thing that I do, although I'm not an electrician, but this is what I'll do, is I'll just go around and see the switches. If the switches look very old and some of them are even yellow in color, I will probably have second thought. You see, because the older the electrical system is, the more likely it's going to cause you problem in future. Now since we're on the topic of electrical stuff, also check that all the electrical appliances are in working condition, mainly the air conditioner and the light bulbs. Air conditioner is very, very important in Singapore because this place is very, very hot. So honestly, if you don't have air conditioner, I don't know how you're gonna survive, but yes, be sure that it's working. You can also ask the landlord or the person in charge, like, when was this air conditioner last serviced? And after that, the next thing you have to check is the bathroom as well as the kitchen. Open up all the taps and see if the water is draining properly, because the last thing you want is to move into a house and call a plumber. Now that you have done all the physical checks, there are some questions you might need to ask the person in charge or the landlord directly. So the first question you ask is whether or not the utility bills and the Wi-Fi is included in your rent. Now you see, if you're renting an entire flat, this is most definitely not included. Most of the time, you are the one who is supposed to actually open a utility account or even a Wi-Fi account. But if you're actually renting a room, chances are the house would already have an existing account for utility and Wi-Fi. So what you need to clarify is that how are you going to split that money? So whether or not it's going to be included in your monthly rent. If not, how are you guys splitting it? So this is where you need to be very, very transparent with the people that you're staying with. And then the next thing is you might also want to ask if there's any house rules in this place if you're only renting a room. So if you're staying with the landlord or you're staying with some other tenants, you might just check with them if there's any limitation for you to use like the electrical appliances in the house. For example, do I have any limitation in using the air conditioner? Do I have like a scheduled laundry timing? Is there a limitation for me to use the kitchen? Can I cook? What does light cooking means? Be sure you clarify it, because to some people, light cooking might just be boiling water. There's also where you can judge whether or not you want to stay with this group of people. If you find or you just sense something is not right, just turn them down politely and go to the next house. Now you're finally decided to rent this flat. Next thing you need to do is to sign the tenancy agreement. Before you even read the tenancy agreement, there's one thing that you should really pay attention to, is that whether or not your landlords are the official owner of the property, because subletting is not permitted in Singapore. So what you really need to make sure is that the owner of the place that you're renting knows that you are one of the tenants in the house and that your name is part of the tenancy agreement. This is to make sure that you're safe and you're not staying in a place illegally. While the whole agreement is very important for you to read, there are certain clauses that I would pay a little bit more attention to, which are the clauses concerning my security deposit. Now, what is security deposit? Security deposit is essentially an amount of money that you pay, usually it's 1 month of rent or 2 months of rent, depending on how long is your lease, before you even move into the house. So by the end of the tenancy, if you decided to move out of the place, this is supposed to be returned back to you, unless you have caused significant damage to the house, or you leave without notice, or you leave without giving prior notice. There will be a grace period written in the agreement telling you when you should let the landlord or the agent know that you want to leave the place. So usually it's about 1 month, some of them is 2 months. So if you have decided that you want to leave after the tenancy agreement ends, be sure that you let them know 1 or 2 months prior to that so that you can protect your security deposit. Here are some of the tips and stuff that I've learned from my renting experiences in Singapore for the past few years. If you're thinking of coming into Singapore to work or to study, I hope this is a helpful video for you. And if you find it useful, please share it to your friends and hit the like button as well as the subscribe button. Subscribe to my channel and click on the little bell up there so that you will be notified whenever we have a new video. If you have any questions regarding the video, you can leave it in the comments and I'll try to answer it as much as I can. And I guess that's all for today. I hope to see you guys soon. Bye!